Let's do it.
Rolls out to the right. 5 seconds to go in the first half. Dante fires deep to the left. Moss caught it at the 11, but now he pitches it to Mo Williams. Touchdown!
You gotta be kidding me!
Welcome back to another episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. My name is Jayson Brown, joined this evening by a couple other fellas. Myles, what's going on, my man?
Not much. Just really excited about today's win. Was really hoping that we were going to see a Packers loss, and I can't believe the Bears beat the Steelers.
Yeah, the Bengals let us down, man. The Bengals let us down. Saxy Prince, what's going on, my man?
Yeah, man, I'm excited about the win. It was a thrashing that I definitely didn't foresee. I definitely predicted a win, but it's good to see the Vikings, kind of come out against a team that, really realistically, if you see them on paper, that's a team that we should be able to beat. But yeah, I'm happy about the win.
And I'm happy we get to record this Told You So episode where we get to go through. We don't have show notes, but we get to talk about the blowout victory for the Vikings. That was my bold prediction. We get to talk about Stephon Diggs racking up red zone touchdowns, which, yeah. And
he had one.
Yeah, he definitely did.
Was that technically a red zone? How far was that out?
I'm pretty sure
it was like on the 22-yard line, I think.
We're giving it to him in the red zone.
That's not red zone.
We're giving it to him in the red zone.
Stephon Diggs on red zone touchdowns today.
And then we're going to talk about. Are we going to talk about the sophomore surge today? We might talk about the sophomore surge.
He wasn't a part of the game plan.
But Yinka's man, Jarius, back up in there, calling plays for the little wide receivers in the red. Man, it was a good day for the brand today.
Hey, don't tell me that is not a staple for any NFL offense. Every NFL offense runs that same play in the red zone.
Yeah,
and what I was saying is that
it's probably the
our
easiest.
Offense needed to run that more frequently because we were not running that kind of play enough in the red zone. We were running higher degree of difficulty plays, and it was nice to see the little guys getting in there, getting their touchdowns on the board. And then it was also nice to get some shout outs from some folks on Twitter calling out the Climbing the Pocket brand when our man Case Keenum was just, after last week when he was having some problems with the, moving around the pocket, his pocket feel, climbing the pocket where he was running 20 yards back and running themselves into sacks. It was nice to see Case in there this week, stepping up, navigating the pocket, getting shout outs from the announcers for how well he was, climbing up and moving around, buying himself time. So that was also a wonderful thing to see in the game. All in all, great game. My man, my homie, Pat Shurmur called another great game.
Wait, hold up. What did you say? All I hear is backpedal.
Yeah.
For y'all that don't know, the most critical person on this podcast of Vikings master game plan guru, Pat Shurmur, Jayson has been the most critical of him since he's got here. So Jason's doing a Michael Jackson moonwalk type.
I'm not gonna lie.
Right now.
I remain skeptical. I remain a bit skeptical. But today, I put my petition in. I'm not sure if you guys saw it on Twitter. I'd like the Vikings to be moved into the NFC South. I think if we can get in there, we send Atlanta up to the NFC North. The Vikings will be in there. We'll be chilling. Playoffs every single year. It'll be lovely. Wouldn't matter who we put back there at quarterback. Pat Shurmur be scheming up gems every week.
Here's what we can say about Pat Shurmur thus far. When it comes to a defense that has a pretty poor secondary, he's a fantastic play caller.
Is that really saying a lot, though?
Yeah, we'll give him some. I don't
know how much that's saying.
The credit I would really give Shurmur is the way he's utilizing Dalvin Cook the way he is. Way better than I expected him to start the season, and the way they finally got him involved more in the passing game. And I know Dalvin Cook finally caught the ball, but the way he schemed and kind of to help Case Keenum out was really big. And he's doing really good with what he's got with Dalvin Cook, who's gonna be special.
Yeah,
well, all right.
I would agree.
Right.
I would agree
So,
with that, Myles.
I know we've kind of gone for a bit of an extra long intro with things, and I think Prince wanted to jump in there yet for a quick second. So, Prince, we'll start with you here. Overall takes on the game, start to finish, run us through. What were your thoughts on everything that you saw? We're talking Pat Shurmur now, so you can start there. Anything else you want to talk about? Xavier Rhodes, defense, special teams. Let us know. What were your thoughts on everything that you saw in the game today?
I think for what Myles was touching on it, something that Pat Shurmur has done very, very well thus far. He obviously touched on Dalvin Cook, but our three biggest weapons right now.
Wow.
The timing of that.
Wow.
The timing was perfect.
Wow. Wow. It was almost like, what was the name of the ESPN show? Is it Part of the Interruption? No, not Part of the Interruption. Tony Reali, the sports writers come through. You get to mute people when they start talking and saying stuff you don't. Yeah. It was like I did at the Prince, except not really. Prince just got bad internet. So
I don't know how that. I'm
he's
back. Now.
We're done filibustering, so Prince can get back on here. So Prince, continue to enlighten us. I hope you didn't lose your train of thought.
No. So something that I see that Pat Shurmur is doing very, very well is getting into, I guess you could call it the big three: Dalvin Cook, Stephon Diggs, and Adam Thielen. He's creating a fantastic game plan for the 2 games that we've really seen where he's getting those 3 involved very, very early. He's dialing up more down the field shots for guys like Adam Thielen, specifically Stephon Diggs. We're seeing him being able to stretch the field more vertically, which I've been very much an advocate for. I really hated the take last year where, everyone was saying, Pat Shurmur's trying to turn Stephon Diggs into Jarvis Landry, because I've never seen Diggs as that kind of guy. I very much saw him being able to open the field more vertically, being able to just move him across the line. So you're getting to see that a little bit more. So I have to give kudos to Shurmur, but I also have to give kudos to just the players. I mean, Stephon Diggs, as weird as it seems, he has improved even more from what he was a year ago. And I still don't think that he's at his prime just yet, which is scary to think about. Adam Thielen is making crazy catches every single game. So I think it's pretty clear Adam Thielen is here to stay. And
he's legit, man.
And that's more than okay with me, because I know there's a lot of people who are a little bit skeptical, like 1 year wonder, but no, I think Adam is here to stay. My boy Jerry's right, getting in the end zone. You know how much I love that. Defensively, I'll just touch on a few points. I think Mackenzie Alexander is getting slept on. He's having a surprisingly good season. I would like to see him on the outside a little bit more than he is, but I think he's also doing not too poorly in the nickel, which is really what we need. Xavier Rhodes, in my opinion, is the best corner in the league right now. Sans maybe Patrick Peterson, but that right there. Our 2 bookend defensive end, Danielle Hunter and Everson Griffin. Everson Griffin's a freak. We all know that, but I think something that me and Arif had said early in the kind of before the preseason started was like, let's slow our roll on Danielle Hunter being like this sack god, getting 23 sacks in a season. But we are starting to see how important he is in the run game, how the pressure that he's actually able to provide is freeing up guys like Brian Robinson to come up through the middle, Everson Griffin to get sacks because his quarterbacks are getting flushed his side. So I don't want people to misconstrue what the box scores might say with Danielle Hunter. He's gonna have a lot of pressure. So, and the last thing is just good to see that the Vikings got some takeaways today. I think we really needed it, and it happened in some pretty prime locations. A few in the red zone. So, yeah, those were kind of my takes from the game thus far.
All right, Myles, how about you, man? What were your takes for this game? What were your big takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I touched on earlier, we already knew this and we kind of expected it when the Vikings first drafted him, but Dalvin Cook's the real deal. Like that guy's just so good. And I know some people pre-draft had kind of flagged him, which I thought was weird. There are some people out there, I think like Keon Fahey is one of them, where they think Dalvin Cook's not going to be able to break tackles at the NFL level, which clearly could see differently today. That guy was breaking all kinds of tackles. He finally was able to get involved in the pass game, which I was really excited about because I think he's not David Johnson, he's not Le'Veon Bell, but he has abilities within that similar skill set that he can be used in terms of mismatches against linebackers and safeties. If you spread him out wide, I don't think he's obviously not the route runner those guys are, but he can be used in that kind of manner that makes him that dual threat that I think this offense has really been missing. I mean, obviously since Adrian Peterson, but I mean that was a different kind of skill set that he had, not to diminish his greatness, but so that's really exciting to see, being able to kind of have an inventive type offense that you can build around a guy who can do everything. He's a full complete 3-down back. His pass pro's really good compared to what we thought it would be. So I was really excited about how that all ended up today, and him finally getting his first career touchdown, which was a bit controversial, more than I think the end result ended up being, which was good for the Vikings. But I don't need to touch on that. All positive here. I thought the way they schemed Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen on offense were phenomenal, and they continue to do so. I don't know how teams are going to bottle those two up, because you take one away and the other one's going to get open. Those guys are just they're up there for one of the better tandems in the league, I think. And I think that's not getting talked about enough, because both guys, and kind of part of my bold prediction for the season was that we'd have 2 1,000-yard receivers and a 1,000-yard rusher. And it's still obviously really early, but I think the way the season's going right now, and if those guys stay healthy, I think we're probably gonna see that. So the way those guys are getting open, on almost every route, guys like Case Keenum and Sam Bradford being able to find him, and just trusting those guys to make the plays that they are, and it's really great to see. And I think, like Prince had touched on earlier, not relegating Stephon Diggs to the slot and making him just a guy who dink and dunks in the pass game. He's the guy that can get big chunks of yards, and you saw it today with I think it was his longest career touchdown catch, which could have been also bad, but it ended up being a positive. And then last on defense, I really thought the defense did really well. Eric Kendricks continues just to be all over the field. That guy's a monster. I think he's probably arguably one of the most underrated linebackers in the league. Andrew Sadeo, although I was talking to my wife earlier about it, I think the way he kind of throws his weight around blindly can kind of, the way that touchdown hit on Cameron Brate, I was
oh my God, oh my Lord, like he almost killed Cameron Brate.
Yeah, and I'm all for the hard hits and stuff and not letting those guys make those kind of contested catches and stuff, but I was telling my wife that I just kind of thought it was unnecessary. The way he hit him that way, I just wasn't a fan of it, to be honest. And I think sometimes that's where I struggle with Andrew Sandejo the most, is just the way he kind of blindly, throws his shoulder into things.
Yeah, he's reckless a lot of the times.
Yeah, exactly. He's real reckless, and you need that at times, but at the same time, like, it's going to get you flags. It's going to get guys hurt. You don't want that, and
it's going to get your own guys hurt.
Exactly, which we've seen before. But I don't want to get too negative on it, because overall I thought he played fairly well today. Had the easy interception, which was great. And then, I don't really think it says too much, but Trey Wayne's getting the first interception of the season for the team. I thought he got beat right off the line, and Jameis Winston made a mistake with the throw, but Trey Waynes was able to take advantage of it and get the interception, which was big. I think that just only helps boost his confidence, because I know we're going to need him moving forward, as much as folks think Tremaine Brock should be the next guy, which we saw the rust from him today, and we saw what potentially could be the reason he was dealt for a 7th round pick. Don't want to get too negative today, just because the Vikings were playing stellar football. And then lastly, I think Everson Griffin should be in the early running consideration for Defensive Player of the Year, because that guy is playing out of his mind. Like, we know he's one of the best defensive ends in the league, but that guy is arguably playing the best 4-3 defensive end in the league right now, and arguably one of the better defenders in the league. That guy is just unblockable, making plays in the run game, move him all around, and yeah, he's just phenomenal.
So Miles, while I got you here, because I wanted to get your comments. Obviously, all around good game. Not too many, really, not many negatives to take away from either side of the ball. But BJ had a take today on Twitter, basically, you're talking about the sophomore surge. So you guys were kind of jokingly messing around about who was actually the conductor of the Treadwell bandwagon. But after the game, he seemed a little, I guess we'll say, dejected about Treadwell's usage or kind of him and how he was kind of brought into the game plan, how often he was on the field in 3 wide receiver sets, etc. I guess now that we are 3 games into the season and we've kind of seen this, I guess it's a trend. It's a very small trend. It's still not a ton of data points, but I mean, one of the things that the avid Treadwell supporter has said is that red zone is kind of the part of the field where we can expect him to really come in and make his mark. And then you get to the red zone and the wide receiver that ends up getting in there and making the play is the diminutive Jarius Wright, and Treadwell's nowhere to be found. So I guess as we're kind of moving along now, what are your thoughts on kind of where we're at with Treadwell? We have one more game against another fairly soft secondary upcoming with Detroit. Like, what are your thoughts on kind of where he's at, what his usage is looking like, and just his development and his chances, I guess, really to keep that position when Floyd comes back after another game?
Excuse me. I'd like whether Floyd's there or not. I don't really think it changes too much, just because I don't think, obviously with the way Diggs and Thielen are playing, I don't think anybody else is really going to get a high usage. I mean, you see how much it's really affecting guys like Kyle Rudolph. I think his targets and overall receptions are way down compared to
top 5
at this point already, right?
You think he's still top 5 though?
I mean, he has to be, right?
I mean, he's still definitely top 5.
But no, I do think the Vikings are kind of, again, like you've mentioned a few times, Jayson, earlier in earlier podcasts, about you don't want to take away the target shares from Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, because those guys are like I said earlier, some of the best, one of the best wide receiver tandems in the league right now. So you're not going to take away a lot from them. But how often this team is dropping back and throwing the ball under Pat Shurmur, I don't understand why they couldn't find opportunities to get Treadwell involved, especially if he's the kind of guy. And so for me personally, I like to watch the wide receivers just because that's the position I played, so that's what I like to watch. I like to watch tendencies. And early in the game, you could definitely see a huge difference in Treadwell's body language. And I'm not trying to advocate for him to not pout or too pout or anything like that. But early in the game, you saw him. He's rearing to go. He's willing to block, willing to run hard on every play. And then you kind of see as the game went on, you could tell the way his stance was in and out. When he was lined up, whether it was going to be a pass play or a run play, or if it was just going to be a play that was going to be the opposite way of his side. Because I definitely noticed that his body language started to get more lackadaisical. I think that's a word. If not, lackadaisical. Thank you, honey. But it started to get, more relaxed, and he started just to look kind of disinterested in the way everything was going, because he wasn't getting involved. You saw it on a couple pass plays. I think with one of the screens that they ran, he just completely missed a block. I think he did that. He might have done that twice today, where he's the kind of guy who's probably overall the best blocking receiver on the team. And I just think if you were able to kind of get him involved early, and it doesn't have to be like a lot of targets, a lot of opportunities, just a couple things just to kind of let him know that, hey, like with all the playing time you're really going to get, we want you to be a part of what we're doing. I don't see why they couldn't do that, just to kind of help keep him not happy or satisfied, but keep him interested in the game. Because down the road you might need him if there's an injury, if there's anything like that. Just like, I don't know, I'm trying to, I know we use the word diva for wide receivers, but that's the mentality that these guys have. Like if we have a game where Stephon Diggs isn't getting targets, you're going to notice a little bit of the way his body reaction acts, and he wants the ball. I think Treadwell's that kind of guy too. He wants the ball, he wants the opportunities, and he's not getting them right now, which is unfortunate. I mean, if the team's winning, I'm not going to make it too big of a deal about it. But at the same time, I just think he's the kind of guy that they are going to need at some point this season, down the road, God forbid, hopefully we don't get an injury. Never would wish for that. But if it happens, he's going to need to step up and play a significant role. So I just think, making sure that, your guys are involved. Like they're doing it for a guy like Jarius Wright. When he's in the game, he's getting targets, he's getting opportunities, whether it's in the red zone or on third down. I don't see why they couldn't do that kind of thing for a guy like Laquan Treadwell, just to kind of help build his confidence too. So I went on a little bit of a rant there, but I just definitely noticed it today that toward the third and fourth quarter today, that he just started to be less interested overall because the game seemed to be in hand, and he just wasn't. He only had, I think, the one target today. So just kind of my overall take.
Yeah, and that does make a lot of sense because, I mean, wide receivers, they are a different breed on the field. Like wide receivers, in a way, they remind me of strikers in soccer. They're guys who don't get a ton of opportunities within a game to make a play, and they're just different. Yeah, and they want the ball. They need to get into a flow. And in soccer, you might pass the striker the ball just so he can feel it on his feet, do a little something, even if he's not, taking a shot. Just get the ball to him, let him get into the flow of the game. And it's the same thing with wide receivers where, you want to get them a couple touches early. It's just so that they, can get in sync, get into the flow of the game. And yeah, with a guy like Treadwell, as a draft prospect, I didn't love Laquan Treadwell, didn't love him as a pick. But now that he's here and he's going to be, on the team and part of the game plan, if he's going to be out there, I mean, let's throw him the ball a little bit more frequently or yeah, I guess maybe I'm curious as to what it is, because now it's not just, you would think that with Case, because often what you see happen is that, the backup comes in and the backup has a little bit more rapport with some of the guys who maybe aren't your starters because they've been working with them, with the twos. But even when Case is coming in, Treadwell doesn't seem to have that rapport with him either, and he still isn't getting the targets. So that was something I thought might have been in his favor, that might have been beneficial, that he might have got a couple more looks with Case coming in because he is the backup, and maybe they had a few more snaps together in practice. But not even in this case, he wasn't really getting that run, and yeah, it'll be disappointing. And I think it's going to be even more competition, even more difficult for Treadwell to really have that breakout once you have Floyd and another mouth to feed in that wide receiver room.
Yeah,
week 5.
I'm definitely curious to see how that everything plays out because you saw today that they only dressed 4 receivers for the game. Curious to see what happens when Floyd comes back. I mean,
and that was a great call. Your modesty for Myles is not something that was put out there. But when we were talking about everything and trying to figure out, who was going to be, deactivated for this game for Tremaine Brock to come back, and Myles called it right out the gate, saying that Stacey Coley would likely be the one to sit for this game because he doesn't play on any special teams. So yeah, they announced it, and Myles was proven to be correct with that prediction. So I guess at some point we'll listen to you, maybe one day.
real quick though, I do kind of I can't remember. Can Floyd practice with the team or no? He can't practice, but he can be in the facility.
No,
yeah, he can be in the facility, but he can't practice.
So I'm wondering. Sorry, go ahead.
I think he can also be in the meetings as well too.
Yeah, he can be there, but he can't practice or do anything. I'm wondering just the way the flow has been going for the offense. If he's one of those guys, once he's able to, officially practice and be back to the team officially, if this could be more of like the Tremaine Brock situation where this is just hypothetical because I have no idea what their plan is or what they're going to do. But it could be like Tremaine Brock where they kind of just bring him along slowly, let him get acclimated to practicing again, and maybe not, be active for the first couple of weeks he's back. But maybe I'm wrong. Could be a completely different situation by, after week 4 anyways. But just kind of a thought I had, just the way everybody's been playing. Well, Diggs and Thielen specifically have been playing.
If Floyd comes back and he was playing like he was in training camp, the Vikings are going to have a pretty nasty 3-headed monster at
right. Receiver. I'm just wondering what, like, do they plug him in at the 3 spot right away? Like, that's just what I'm saying though. Like, does he just get that right away, or like what kind of happens? That's just kind of what I'm kind of wondering is like how that's going to be handled.
I think what I foresee happening is I think he'll probably start rotating a little bit with Treadwell, keep Adam Thielen and Diggs, as your main 2 targets. And then I think what's going to happen is I think Floyd might make a few catches the next couple of games, and then you start seeing him maybe get more of those for sure wide receiver 3 roles. So that's kind of what I'm predicting to happen, but this is like, 4 or 5
Right.
games down the road.
Well, yeah, and I just wonder too, because like Jarius Wright's role is pretty important because he's the other guy. He's like the backup slot receiver to like Thielen and Diggs. So he's an important role and an important player on the team. He may not get as many opportunities, but he's really important to what this team does if one of those guys goes down.
Yeah, which is why I feel like it's so important that I know that a lot of people are just like, a little bit down on Jarius, but it's really to Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, it really only takes one injury to one of those guys to miss a game or two, and Diggs has yet to complete a full season. Knock on wood, he is going to this season, but to have the flexibility to still not diminish completely what you want to do on offense when if one of those guys were to go down, I think it is important, which is why Floyd coming back and hopefully Treadwell being able to do more on the offense and Jarius Wright will still give you the opportunity to do some other things.
So we talked about it a little bit at the beginning there, but I guess where are you guys at with Pat Shurmur thus far? You guys all the way in? You bought in Shurmur the man? Think he's the guy? Or his schemes really just out there, tricking teams and you have full confidence in him as we move forward? Or are you guys feeling more like it's the games where we're having these offensive explosions? It's really more, Yinka pretty much shut it down on Twitter already this afternoon. It's just a competition that we face. So like we faced the Saints, they're terrible. We played the Bucs where I think half their defense ended up ending the game on the sidelines. Which one is it? Do you think that Shurmur's really like turned a page, turned a corner, is out there really doing his thing with the scheme? Or have we just played some really bad teams where our offensive players are just too good? Myles, I'll start with you. What's your thought, man?
Yeah, for me, I think it's got to be a combination of both. I think you've definitely seen some growth with Pat Shurmur and the full offseason he's had to be the offensive coordinator and to kind of implement his new system, because there's some new wrinkles. It's not just the same old dink and dunk that we saw last year because of the way he kind of had to improvise on the fly, his system with North Turner's. So I think there's definitely a combination. I think we're starting to see, more downfield throws that I know people were kind of worried about seeing, and we're seeing it from both Case Keenum and Sam Bradford. So I don't think it's just a one quarterback thing. I think it's
just on that point, Myles, which is crazy because I just looked it up, is that Bradford, when he played, he actually increased his average depth of target by almost a yard.
Right.
But Case Keenum's out there. He's basically tied for 11th in the league in average depth of target right now. He's even gone further than that. I think it was around 9.3 yards is his average depth of target, wow. which is crazy. Like it's almost like they're running, even though it's the same scheme. And I think Yinka described it as YOLO Chase. But like, yeah, Case is really going down the field with a lot of his targets when he's out there.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one of those guys who's not afraid to take chances, which could kind of backfire on you a little bit. You get the good and the bad with those kind of guys, which is kind of what you kind of like in your backup quarterback. He's a guy who's not afraid to get in there and sling it, no matter if he's, playing just a 1 or 2 series, he's playing a full game, a few weeks. That's what you kind of like in your backup quarterback, a guy who's not afraid to do that, because he knows that if he's going to win games, that's the way he's got to do it. He's got to be able to go out there and sling it, not be able to, not be afraid to take chances. So that's something that I've been, excited about Case Keenum, the way he's got the confidence to do it. So that's always great. And I know we were a little skeptical when the Vikings first picked him up. So that's really good to see. But I think it is a part of what the way Shurmur's offense is, he's building his offense around too, though. I think he's trying to get more explosive plays. He's trying to kind of open things up for the offense, whether it's to help the run game, whether it's to help his receivers. I think he's definitely scheming those guys open on, the deep crossing routes, the deep comebacks, the deep post routes. You're seeing that happen. It's not, I don't think it's just a, here and there situation. He's definitely doing it on a more consistent basis this year. And a big part of it could just be too that, he feels that he has the opportunity to do it because his offensive line has the ability to kind of give the quarterback just, that slight couple tenths of a second more time. So I definitely think Pat Shurmur's doing a lot better overall, scheming to his players' strengths, moving a guy like Adam Thielen into the slot and allowing him to move around all over the place and not just, being relegated to just the slot for, both him and Diggs has been really big. And then the way I said earlier, the way he's been using Dalvin Cook is just, I'm really impressed by that.
All right. So moving this thing forward, like, I guess, what are you guys thinking about how things could play out for next week and the next week and the next week? So really, the season, we've played some games, but the season for us really starts next week. We have 3 games in a row against divisional opponents, starting with the Lions. I guess, do you guys feel a bit more comfortable now with Case Keenum going in? I mean, small sample, Quandre Diggs for the Lions, who I think was one of the worst, if not the worst rated cornerback in Pro Football Focus last year, is actually above average by their scoring thus far on the season. Darius Slay is a good player. They have some decent edge rushers. Like, what are your thoughts on going into this next stretch here? Do you think team tries to rush Sam back, or do you think Sam sits for the next couple of games, maybe comes back and tries to come back versus Green Bay? And then I guess the last part that I wanted to get to with you guys is, given the fact that we do have some exploitable defenses in the next couple of weeks. So we have the Lions, who aren't great. We have the Bears, whose secondary is exploitable. And we have Green Bay, whose secondary is terrible, kind of as our next 3 games. What do we do if Case Keenum ends up getting hot and is on a roll, killing folks before, like, we win, say, the next 3 games or 2 games with Case? Do you think the team pulls the plug and goes back to Sam? Give me your takes on kind of the next, how everything's going to play out. And Yinka, we'll start with you in terms of the games we have to play against the division, Sam's health coming back, and that what if of the 3-way quarterback controversy that people were joking about online today.
So I mean, and I think it kind of bleeds over from the previous topic, whereas I think it's like the Teddy in me that just like doesn't get too high or too low about any specific things, because I'm probably a little bit critical as far as like, hey, we haven't faced any defenses where I really feel like this team really was tested this week. We didn't face a Seattle, we didn't face we didn't face the Cardinals or a team like that I know that would be, it'd be hard to game plan around, and B, it'd be hard for our players to actually execute at a high level. So
but looking at our schedule, Prince, looking at our schedule, when are we going to play one of those teams?
I know it's going to be a while, and that's what's scary about this, because I think this is going to be really similar to I think it's going to be a combination between what last year was and what 2015 was, in the sense that I would not be surprised if the Vikings get hot right now. This is a perfect time for them to really rack up some wins right now, because I think you're going to be facing some defenses that put you in a little bit more favorable matches. Our defense is very, very good. So I think you can put together some wins, especially within the division. What worries me is, probably a lot of people know this, but, the worst football you'll see is in September. There's just awful football here. The bad teams look really bad, and the good teams, they show why they are, the good elite teams. And it doesn't really start.
The Jets just beat the hell out of the Miami Dolphins today, just by the way, just so you know.
Yeah. So I mean, it's just weird. It's just weird football in September, and that, obviously, once you start moving into later months, November, December, that's when you really start to see those teams pull away. The only thing that I'm worried about is we probably won't really get a defensive test until maybe the Ravens, or maybe. I don't know, maybe Atlanta when we face them in December. So I think it is going to be a little bit of time.
Are we talking about the same Ravens that got boat raced by Blake Bortles today?
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there. I can't even tell you what happened there. But the only thing I'm worried about is that I don't feel like we will get to see if this offense can match up against some of those elite level teams. I think that they might be able to, but I'm not getting too high on them just because for that very purpose. But that being said, I do think that within this next division run, I think we can go 2-1, beat the Lions, probably lose to Chicago because we're going to Soldier Field. But I think beating Green Bay here, I think it's very doable. So as far as Shermer, I'm still not quite there yet. He hasn't convinced me there. He's enticed me a little bit. He's made me a nice tater tot hot dish. But he hasn't made the steak yet. That's what I'm waiting for. So I think I need to see a little bit more offensively. I think on defense, what we're starting to see is what this defense can be and look like when they get when they don't have to carry the game the entire time. When we get to control the clock a little bit more, when you get Dalvin Cook and Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen going and stuff, need to take this offense to the next level is kind of what we talked about earlier. We need to get a Treadwell or a Michael Floyd, Kyle Rudolph. Like, we need to start getting him going for all the money that we're paying him. We need to start seeing some of that top 10 tight end style play from him really soon. And maybe he just hasn't been part of the game plan, but I'm still not completely convinced that this offense is what we think it is, So that's how I feel.
How about you, Myles? You're usually the more optimistic one amongst all of us here. Do you have the same reservations as Prince? Or are you kind of all into it? And oh my Lord, Myles just pulled a Prince and dropped off as soon as we went to him. So come right back to you, Prince. You watching this game right now?
I'm not watching this game.
Right as you call me optimistic, Myles.
Yeah, optimistic Myles. Yeah, more optimistic than his router, I guess.
No, that was me. I pressed the wrong button.
Okay.
Speaking of optimistic, have y'all heard Sound of Blackness, Optimistic?
Mm-mm.
No, never mind.
I don't even know.
Anyways,
speaking of optimistic, have you seen how much money Derek Carr and the Raiders are trying to help Kirk Cousins make right now?
Mm-hmm.
Cousins out there balling. But anyway, Myles.
Yeah, anyways, yes.
Are you as I guess, are you more optimistic than Prince on all this, or are you equally reserved on kind of what you've seen thus far and the fact that we have lit up some pretty either bad or injured offenses out there? Or when you look at our schedule and look at the fact that we really don't have any strong defenses, are you really feeling like the Vikings could get on a run here?
Yeah, like looking at the overall schedule, obviously the divisional games are always the ones that you never know how they can go. Going to Chicago is always a tough one for the Vikings. You always playing the Packers is always a tough one, obviously. And the way last season went against the Lions, that like you have to at least split them this season if you want any chance at winning this division. But overall, I think I do think Prince did make some good points. But just looking at the overall schedule, I think whenever the Vikings are at home, they have an opportunity to beat anybody, whoever's at quarterback. I think just the way the crowd gets into it, that it's a real home field advantage, and so they could play anybody, and I think they have a chance to beat anybody at home. So, like looking at the schedule, I think the two best overall defenses that they're going to play this season are the Rams, which is at home, who let Brian Hoyer go off for over 350 yards on Thursday, and the Atlanta Falcons in Atlanta in December. So I think personally, based off looking at the schedule, those are the best two defenses they're going to play all season. And I thought the Buccaneers would be too, but obviously with the injuries and everything, that just didn't end up being the case. But yeah, if they can find a way to get to the bye through the Cleveland Browns at the end of October, I really think that's going to go a long way for what this team is going to be. Because if they can find a way to stay somewhat healthy and win 6-4, 7-3 right around that, hovering around, right around there by the bye week, that's going to go a huge way for what this team is in the second half. Because I don't think you're going to see the flash in the pan the way they were last season, where the first 5 games were kind of an anomaly. I think you're going to see you get in the heart of everything by week 10 and 11. So that's I really think this team could win 10 plus games this season if people stay healthy and they're winning the home games the way we expect them to. So yes, I'm more optimistic a little bit than Saxy, and I do think looking at the schedule, the way Pat Shurmur gets to be, the way he gets the game plan against some of these lesser defenses is going to go a long way too. I just want to see it on the road. I think that's just what scares me a little bit the most is the way this team plays on the road.
And what are your thoughts on kind of how things play out going forward with Sam, Teddy, and now Team Briefcase up in here? Because I mean, and that's the thing that's going to be tough. I mean, we know that that football people like to say that they make all the decisions. It's 100% about football. The fans and all the rest of that doesn't really influence things. But I think sometimes context gets lost on like the fan base. And so let's say that, we're playing a bunch of defenses that are seemingly hot garbage, but Case, settles in and Shurmur keeps scheming it up to basically just pass to your good players. So pass the ball to Diggs, Thielen, and give the ball to Dalvin Cook, and the offense keeps rolling along. I mean, the Falcons running backs went off on the Lions today. I mean, they put up 151 yards, averaging 5.4 yards per carry. Your man Taylor Gabriel went off for 5 catches, 79 yards, and a touchdown today. Julio went for 7 and 91. Tevin was killing them out of the backfield. Devontae was doing well out of the backfield. Sanu had a touchdown. It was a great day for your brand in that other game, Myles. Yeah, your brand was strong in the Falcons game, but so let's say Case goes out there and just by doing what he kind of did in this game, has another great game against the Lions. I feel like this is the year that we go into Soldier Field and handle business. Like, our defense is really good, and our offensive skill players should feast on the Bears coverage. Like, what do we do if Case actually strings together a bunch of really good games?
I just think overall, I think if Case continues to play well, it just kind of slows down the forcing Sam Bradford back. But I mean, at the same time, it sounds like what I heard today on Fox News by Jay Glazer not Fox News, Fox Sports, not Fox News, Fox Sports, that Sam Bradford was really pushing to try to get back this week, and he was pushing really hard against Zimmer and the staff to kind of let him come back, and they kind of had to shut him down and be like, no, that's not going to work. So I think at the end of the day, he's going to continue to chomp at the bit to get back. So no matter what, I mean, I think if he's 100% healthy, no matter how well Case is playing, it'd be hard not to put Sam back in there in the mix, just because he is your starting quarterback. If the plan isn't to have Case Keenum be that guy. If for some reason there's any setbacks though or anything for Sam, maybe we continue to see Case. But I just have a hard time seeing this team not go back to Sam if he's 100% healthy, no matter how well Case is playing. But I could be wrong. They could be in the mindset of just play the hot hand, and if the hot hand's Case, then keep him rolling. I'm all for it, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, makes sense. And then I guess, Prince, any other takes on the game or the upcoming games in the season before we keep things rolling along?
Yeah, my little thing on Twitter about Case is I don't give up balls, because he just be throwing them YOLO balls sometimes, where I'm all for it, y'all. I'm here for it. I'm here for Case to do Case, as long as whatever Case is doing isn't leading to, horrible turnovers and whatnot. But I think you guys had touched on, I think it was Trey Waynes. It's weird because I don't know what it is, but maybe it's like he gets his confidence knocked so much playing so far off his man, not really jamming at the line of scrimmage. Obviously knowing what his physical tools is, not being able to flip his hips.
Are you at church?
No, I have a church that's right across and the windows open.
Oh, okay.
So yeah. But it's weird because when he gets torched like all game, he always seems to make a play at either towards the end of the game or somewhere in the middle of the game. I think that was kind of the case with the Seahawks game when we were in the playoffs a couple years ago. Last year with Green Bay. Now this year with facing the Bucs. It's just Trey Waynes is an anomaly right now. I think I'm more so on the side of like he's not as good as what he was picked, but it's just weird because I don't know what to do with him. You can't put him in the slot. You can't continue to let him get beat so often as he does on the outside, but at the same time he's able to make plays sometimes when you need plays. So,
I mean, he's. I don't know if you saw the tweet today, but I mean, Pro Football Focus had it right. I mean, he's better than Xavier Rhodes, obviously.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Obviously.
If Xavier Rhodes is number one, he's ground zero for sure. And I think my final take was just something that you gave me a little bit of crap for was my Andrew Sendejo victory lap. A lot of people they wanted Andrew Sendejo to just be gone, and for understandable reasons. You know, he doesn't have the range that Harrison Smith does. He does play very reckless and stuff, but my take has always been, you know, the coaches don't hate Andrew Sendejo as much as fans do, and I think Andrew Sendejo plays well enough, especially as he's improved, to not be too much of a liability on defense. So yeah, that's where that kind of comes from. It's just reiterating that, you know, he'll make mistakes just like any other player, but for the most part, he's a pretty solid safety. You know, do we want an upgrade? Yeah, absolutely. But I'll take an Andrew Sendejo.
Okay, I see you, Prince, out there warming up the arm. We're gonna need to see them stats after this week's game, but let's not get too sidetracked. So we talked about the game. Obviously, we talked a little bit about what's coming up next, but I mean, there were some other things that happened over the last, say, 24 to 48 hours in the world of sports, politics, and I know that there's a certain segment of the population that is very often on the hashtag stick to sports and all the rest. And for the most part in this show, we have obviously every now and again we've stuck our toe into things, but over this weekend, the whole stick to sports pretty much died. I mean, you had the president of the United States use Colin Kaepernick as basically a talking point at a rally to get folks fired up at a political event, which obviously put him back in the limelight and put his protest, which is about police brutality and racial injustice, put that back into the spotlight. And then he kind of went on and we had the back and forth, I guess you'll say, or you can't fire me, I quit, or you can't break up with me because I already broke up with you with Steph Curry, because Steph Curry said that, the Golden State Warriors might not be going to the White House. You had the story come out that the North Carolina men's basketball team basically also decided that they wouldn't be going to the White House. And I mean, basically, yeah, you had the president of the United States call out the men in the NFL and call out the owners as well, basically telling the owners that they should fire any player who exercises his First Amendment right to free speech, which obviously set off a firestorm in the sports world. You saw, widespread protests across the NFL, guys who were on the fence, kind of that pushed them over and they went ahead and did it. You had players who spoke very eloquently in their post-game speeches, speaking to why this issue is something that is so important, because it is not, as folks continue to want to make it, it's not about the troops. It's never been about the troops. It's not about the flag. One of the rights that the troops are fighting for, one of the things that the flag represents, is that First Amendment freedom of speech, which folks are respectfully exercising. You have troops that support, so really, yeah, going on for a little bit here, rambling just a little bit, but there was a lot, and we'd be remiss, this is a podcast. All of us are Black men. We all obviously have very strong opinions about this. And
that's
so,
sure.
Yeah. And so, yeah, wanted to jump into this with you guys a little bit and kind of see where you guys are with everything that happened, this week or this weekend, and then the responses that you saw across the league, and what are your thoughts on how the Vikings handled the whole situation? So, Prince, I'm gonna go to you first, just because I know that you do have a lot of thoughts on this, but Myles has to go after you, so that maybe will stop you from taking up the entire rest of the pod with everything you got to say. So, Prince, what were your thoughts on everything that you saw today?
I think it was definitely a weekend where, just regardless of where you're on the political spectrum, I think it was a weekend for the NFL to, they had to drop the whole stick to sports thing. The president made it a point to bring sports into the political sphere. So I think the NFL had to essentially bring the politics into the. As far as the Vikings organization, I was very very vocal on Twitter as far as how I felt about not only their what their physical actions, but also the statement. I thought everything the Vikings did was weak. I thought it was very disappointing. I understand sometimes not wanting to make a random political statement out of nowhere, but if there was going to be a weekend where it was a lot more acceptable to do it, this would have been the weekend. This would have been the Sunday for my favorite team to take a stance, and they did it. And I know there are a few people who feel that they did protest. Understand this very simply. Locking arms is not a protest because of the fact that the Vikings could do this literally every game. Locking arms doesn't signify anything besides, hey, maybe we stand together. I can put forth that message each and every day. The kind of the point of protesting is it's supposed to incite a little bit of uncomfortability, and sometimes even more than a little bit of uncomfortability. It's supposed to incite thoughts. It's supposed to make you a little bit uncomfortable to maybe start discussing things that you maybe normally don't talk with a lot of people that you associate with.
Yeah, by definition, protest is disruptive. You can't protest and have people not be upset about it. Like,
no,
that's a bad
and the thing is, with locking the arms in solidarity, it's great. It's a great message, but for this specific issue, and let's be very clear, Colin Kaepernick is kneeling for an issue. He's not kneeling to disrespect the flag. He's kneeling for an issue, and that's sometimes lost in translation if it is even getting translated. But the Vikings chose to not make a statement. They didn't protest at all, and which is why I know that a few people are just like, well, isn't it hypocritical to get upset at them for protesting? No, it's not, because they didn't protest. So I'm not being hypocritical. I'm disappointed that they chose not to, because I think this was an avenue for them to do it. Kneeling, choosing to stay inside the locker room, any other of the forms of protesting that people did, I thought were a lot more admirable than anything the Vikings did. The Vikings sent out a message probably 15 minutes before the game that was generic. It said nothing about anything the president had said. It didn't address any of the issues. It was, we're really proud of our players. We want to stand together. They do so much work in the community. Again, those are things that you could put out at any time, right? You can lock arms. You can send out that message at any time. This was a moment for you to stand on the side of, we stand very firmly and clearly against the issues that a guy like Colin Kaepernick has raised, and many other people too, but specifically because he was essentially subtweeted by our president. So I was, I very much appreciated things like Steelers did, some various Seahawks players did, various players around the league that kneeled, because I think that they understand. I think they understand that you can't just create a narrative because you're upset at watching someone do it. Colin Kaepernick has been very clear why he's kneeling. Other players have been very clear why they're kneeling. But unfortunately, it becomes a conversation where this is something I don't like seeing. This is something that makes me uncomfortable. So therefore, I need to make it about a specific issue that is not even a point of conversation. Plenty of players have said that they respect our troops, respect the flag, respect this country and the freedoms that they're given, but they're also exercising those freedoms. And a lot of people don't want to see rich black man say it, but the problem is that you guys have to understand, if you're not willing to listen to poor black men at times. So understand that if you're not willing to listen to the rich black men, who are you willing to listen to at times? That's really all I have to say. I'm disappointed in my team, specifically about that, but I was very happy with what I saw. For the most part, the teams that decided to do an actual protest that wasn't just linking arms.
Okay, Myles, and what were your thoughts? I mean, obviously, we've had quite a few back and forth, quite a few discussions about everything that's going on in our group messages. But I guess, what were your thoughts on what President Trump has had to say about a lot of people who look a little bit like you over the past couple of days here, and then kind of the response that you've seen from athletes and the leagues and the owners and the NFL and the NBA over the past couple of days as well.
I think it's not funny at all. It's not, it's disrespectful the way it's just wrong. Cause when you're the president of the United States, you're supposed to be the number one person, at least on the outside of people looking to upholding the Constitution, upholding the Bill of Rights, upholding all of the things that we allow and do in this country. He's, as the president of the United States, Trump is supposed to be the person that should be condoning that the most. Whether he likes it or not, he should be upholding it. So I can completely understand him not liking it. As we've seen, a lot of people don't like it. As far as me, I think people are avoiding the overall issue and using the flag as like a scapegoat, as we don't want to talk about the issue. The issue right now is that you're disrespecting the flag instead of really talking about the overall issue about the injustice in society and in the United States. But when the president of the United States in himself is not allowing and calling for people to be fired for expressing those feelings through their constitutional right, that's wrong. That's not his role as the leader of this free world. He should be upholding it. Again, he doesn't have to agree with it, but to literally be calling for people to get fired for doing what their constitutional right is completely wrong. And I think if someone like any previous presidents were to do it, people would be calling for them to be impeached. I'm not going to say yeah. Yeah. So I just think there's a lot to it, and I just think it's not right, because that's not what his role as the president of the United States is, and I just think he doesn't even understand that. He doesn't understand that he's no longer like us in a way a celebrity. He's way more than that. And wow, Josh Doxson just made an amazing catch. I'm not gonna go into that. But so I'm really disappointed in that aspect of it, and the people that are really willing to support him for those words are hypocritical in the fact that they're disrespecting the flag, because that's exactly what he's doing by calling for these players and other people to be fired for that. So I'm really disappointed in that. I'm not surprised by it, but I'm really disappointed in it. To kind of speak on what the Vikings had to say about it, again, I'm not surprised by it. What we've seen and heard from the Vikings in terms of this overall response in general hasn't been much. So I just think, I don't know, for me, again, it doesn't surprise me. I'm not as disappointed in them for not doing anything as I am more of individual players not doing anything about it, because it seems like they decided as a whole group that they were going to do one thing together and try to keep it, I guess, in a sense, unified. They didn't want to separate the locker room I read some of the comments Kyle Rudolph had to say about it, and it sounded like they didn't really want to separate the locker room by people doing individual things, which I don't agree with. I think people should be allowed to speak their minds and be able to express themselves as they see fit.
But Myles, sorry to cut you off. But that mentality, it's mind-boggling to me, because that's just groupthink. That's not unification. It's just we are making the decision to just think one mind, and yes, I think you 100%. Can still be a unified front and have disagreements along the line. So I personally can't understand the ideology of unification if you all don't agree on the same issue. Unification. I'm not saying that you are saying that, but I'm just
that's what I'm getting at, though, is the fact that overall I don't agree with it. I think they should be and I don't think one or two people are like, you're not doing this, we won't allow it, because I just don't think that's the way the leaders in that locker room are, the way I've seen things. Maybe I'm wrong, but I also think that they all talked as a group, and those, however many individuals that may have wanted to, make a gesture, may wanted to kneel, may wanted to do something on their own. I just think they all decided as a group that they didn't want to do that. maybe just because the overall personalities in that locker room just didn't want to be controversial in that fact, which again bothers me. But I can't control what other people want to do. I can't control how they want to do it. Does it disappoint me that there are some individuals in that locker room that don't want to do it? Yes, because I would think it would show great growth, and especially in a place like the Midwest, where a lot of the areas around here, not Minnesota specifically, but the different red and blue states around here, and the kind of narrative the Midwest gets of the conservative role. I think being able to see some of the Vikings players, show that solidarity, I think would have been great. The fact that they didn't do it does bother me, does make me a little bit disappointed. But again, I do kind of understand why in the sense that they all decided as a group that they just didn't want to do, they wanted to do one thing. So I don't know. I'm beside myself because I don't even know how to react to it, because like I said before, I can't force them to do something. I can be disappointed in it, in them not doing something as either a group or as individuals. Overall, for the overall aspect of what is happening, it's starting with Colin Kaepernick and kind of snowfalling from there. I just think the cop-out that people really love to do with people taking a knee and, in a sense, disrespecting the flag, is that people continue to not want to talk about the real issue at hand, and they just continue to want to call for people's heads and call those people disrespectful, but they refuse to admit what the situation is really going on in this country. And that's what bothers me the most. And when I see it on Twitter, I try, depending on who it is, sometimes I get involved, sometimes I don't. But I just think overall people need to start talking about the overall issue. And I know that's what they're trying to spark. These players, when they take a knee, when they raise a fist, they do all that. They're trying to spark those conversations. They're trying to get people to recognize the situation and kind of go from there. And you see a guy like Colin Kaepernick who put his money where his mouth is. He put his time where his mouth is. He said he's going to do all these things, and he went out and did them. I just want to see people actually have open conversation about the situations that are going on in this country, and why these players are taking knees, and why they're raising their fists, and why they want to see change, because so many people refuse to admit it's happening, or they refuse to see it actually happening, because in their everyday lives they're not actually witnessing it.
Yeah.
So, or experience it for themselves. So I would really like to see the conversation be around that, and I'm sick of the cop-out that it's just disrespecting the flag. I want to see these people try to empathize, and some people aren't going to do it, and you can't make them do it. But I just want the conversation to get started. And I want things to actually start changing.
Yeah, and this is going to be my question actually for Jayson, because we've both grown up with immigrant parents, and this is for a larger conversation. For a lot of the one sentiment that I hear often is what the flag means to people and how disrespectful it is. And I honestly grew up with immigrant parents. I'm born, raised in America, always have been. It's the only country really I've ever known besides Nigeria that I've been to only once. So inside my family, the American flag means something different from me to my parents. For my parents, again, they were born and for the most part of their adolescence were raised in Nigeria, and they came over to America. So the flag means something to them than it does to me, who's been born here the entire time. So Jayson, how do you think that? How do you feel as far as the conversation goes when it says we should all be unified under this ideology of what this flag represents? When we do still have people who are immigrants here from different countries, or maybe just have different walks of life, whereas maybe the flag means something different to them.
Yeah, and I think that's something that gets lost in the conversation. Is so some people, so Americans, yeah, you were born in America. It basically means you were born somewhere. So it's luck that you happen to be American or who you are in that sense. Whereas, as Yinka said, I'm also, the son of immigrants. My parents initially immigrated to Canada, but then my mother and I moved to the States. We chose to move to America because America for a very long period of time did mean a certain something to people across the world. It was that land of opportunity, that place you could go chase the dream. And so we chose to come there, and I grew up, in the South, in Atlanta. So went to school in a small town on the outside of about an hour and a half outside of Atlanta. So the issues that are being brought up in all of this in terms of racial injustice and everything else, I mean, they're real. I know they're real. There's something that I acutely know to be real, because coming from Canada, where my mother still knows the names of probably every Black person that was in elementary school with me when we lived here, because there were maybe 5. And then moving to Atlanta, where, the ratio flips to being a little bit different, but then leaving the city and feeling at times like you're driven back into the, 50s and 60s, depending on what counties you were driving through, like it's real. And I guess that's, the same frustration that you guys have spoken to on this issue, is that there is an issue of racism and there is a racial divide. And I think most people who are being honest understand that all the races aren't treated equally in the country. And the fact that someone could even fix their mouth to say, like, keep your politics out of my sports, when we're actually talking about something that is a matter of life and death for people. I myself, driving from my job as a middle manager at a bank, dressed in a suit and tie, pulled over in Cobb County in Atlanta, pulled out of the car where 2 cops had guns on me, ran all my information while I'm, scared out of my mind because I'm wondering why I'm being yoked up and having guns pulled on me and all this other stuff. Run my information. Oh, okay, here you go. Go on your way. Didn't tell me why they pulled me over. Nothing. Like, these are things that people go through and they live with every single day. And it's real and it's not right. And it's something that, these players bringing attention to that issue should be something that, if you actually do want America to be great, you should be willing to have a conversation about. Wanting something to be great doesn't mean that you never criticize it. And I see a lot of people out there who have kids who talk about their kids on Twitter and know that they certainly don't raise their children that way. Like, yeah, you love your kids, but you absolutely tell your kids when they're doing something that's wrong. Your country is the same thing. Your country continues to grow. It changes, it shifts as we move through the years, and things that were okay 50 years ago aren't okay now. And so for someone to call out that, police officers shooting unarmed people as they run away in some cases and then not going to jail for it, someone saying that's wrong should be something that every person in America can agree with, because those are the values that America says it stands for. And so now, as someone who initially lived in Canada, but grew up in the States, left shortly after Obama was elected, and now watching this stuff from the outside, it makes me sad, because America was my adopted country. Like, I love America still. Most of my really close friends still live in the States, and it's sad to watch what is happening right now. Not because these divisions are anything that are different or new. The divisions have always existed, and for anyone to say otherwise, I mean, they're deluding themselves. America didn't start being racist when Barack Obama was elected, and they certainly didn't become racist when Donald Trump became president. I mean, there's things that have been going on in this country for hundreds of years, but just the way the conversation is going now, and the fact that, you have a president stooping to the level of fighting with professional athletes and entertainers and news networks and all of these things, like, the coverage up here, like, it's embarrassing for me as someone who grew up in the States. The way America's talked about now by people outside of America, like, it's embarrassing. It's a joke. People who used to come to the States or want to come to the States, like Canada, I will say as an example, we are getting an influx of the type of person that you would want in America are coming here now because they think that it's a hostile environment in the States. And just all around, these are things that, yeah, they need to be talked about. The president should be better than this. And this shouldn't be one of those, but Hillary, but Obama. This should just be one of those things where we can look at it and be like, this is ridiculous. And everyone can agree that the president should not be doing this kind of thing. And the issue of racial injustice should be something that all of us, white, black, or other, should be able to be honest and have a conversation about, because it's real. And if you want to tell me it's something different, then, there might be a label or two that we might need to put on you too. So
real quick with that, one of the points that you made, as far as criticism for America, because I know that there's a lot who feel. I remember talking to someone very specific, and she was very much an American, very strong. It was clear nationalist, and she doesn't like any criticism towards America whatsoever. But what people have to understand, who maybe believe in the slogan "Make America Great Again," understand inherently that is a criticism of America. That says that at its current state of mind, it is not great, but we're going to strive for that greatness, and I'm actually okay with that. I'm actually okay with us admitting, hey, we're not the greatest team, but we're going to become the greatest team. Vikings might not be there just yet, but by the end of the season, with all the things that we're going to work through, we're going to be that team, and we're going to win the Super Bowl. So those who bring the criticism, like, they share in that same ideology that we want to make this country the greatest that it is for everyone who wants to be an American. I mean, I believe that's the dream that everybody wants to have. And understand this: I watched my mom become an American citizen. I was only like 3 or 4 years old, but I still remember sitting way in the back and looking at my dad. I'm like, "What's going on?" He's just like, "Your mom's about to become a citizen." And I remember them calling out her name still to this day. It's one of the few, I was younger memories that I definitely remember, but I just remember being in the hall and watching her become an American citizen. And I feel like that's kind of what it means to make America great, bringing everybody who wants to truly be an American and the best of the best, and striving to figure out all the things that we still need to work through our country. So I just wanted to touch on that point that you had brought up that sparked that.
Well, that's awesome. I think it's I'm gonna go ahead and get on my ladder and climb down from the soapbox I just jumped up on there. Myles, I guess any final shots, anything that you want to say before we go ahead and wrap this thing on up?
I mean, just that watching people like my father, who was a black man from North Carolina and grew up in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and all that, and literally be in high school during segregation and all that. Just watching him feel like this is feels like it's reverting back to some of that is scary. So I kind of always hoped that he would never have to see that stuff again, never have to experience it, never have to live through it again. I don't know. It scares me. It really does. The way this thing's going.
And Myles, those are the kinds of people that I personally want to be listening to. How was it way back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, where they had to, some of the worst times as far as racial discrimination? Even people who've experienced the Holocaust. I had a bandmate who told me his grandma grew up during the Holocaust, and she was a survivor, and she saw some things, and she had nightmares. Like, oh my God, we're going through this again. Those are the kinds of people we should be listening to in this country. We have all our politicians and stuff, but some of the people who've gone through the injustices that are saying, hey, we're seeing a lot of the similar symptoms, and we don't want this country to fall ill to them. We want to treat them before they become a full-blown disease. Right. And I think it's just a great point that you brought up.
Well, all right then. So this was your half and half Vikings post game, half. Man, I really wish those guys would stick to sports episode of the Climbing the Pocket podcast. We will be back around midweek with another episode, and I will be back with Eric and Luke in the middle of the week as well with another episode of the Pocket Protectors podcast. My name is Jayson Brown, here with Myles Gorham and the Saxy Prince, Yinka Allende. He's out here warming up, so you'll be getting some of his stats and hopefully some video evidence of him playing quarterback on the internet before too long. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back soon.